I'm Madison, and the night my own mother shoved a trash bag of my clothes into my arms, she didn't even look me in the eyes. She stood in the doorway like I was a stranger, like 18 years of birthdays and scraped knees meant nothing. You're grown, she said, voice flat. Figure it out. Have you ever watched the person who raised you choose someone else's comfort over your survival? I walked into the dark with $27, no plan, and a truth that hit harder than the winter air. Love can be revoked like a privilege. I used to believe our house smelled like safety. Cinnamon candles in fall, lemon cleaner on Saturdays, my mom's perfume drifting down the hallway when she got ready for work. My mother's name is Diane. She was the kind of woman who looked put together even when she was angry, lipstick perfect, hairpinned, smile polite enough to fool strangers. For a long time, I mistook her composure for strength. My dad, Mark, died when I was 12. It was sudden, one of those phone calls you only hear about until it's your life. After the funeral, Diane turned into someone I didn't recognize. She didn't crumble, she hardened. Bills showed up like threats. Neighbors offered Diane accepted them with a tight smile and then cried in the laundry room where she thought I couldn't hear. 2 years later, she met Rick. Rick was charming in public and quiet in private, like he was always judging the room and deciding what it was worth. He bought Diane a bracelet after 3 dates. He brought me a stuffed penguin and said, Madison, right, I hear you're the smart one. I felt proud, like I'd been chosen for a role. I didn't realize he was reading me the way people read price tags. When Diane married Rick, the house changed. The cinnamon candles were replaced with crisp luxury scents. The lemon cleaner became, don't touch that, it's expensive. Diane started saying things like, Rick has a system, and we're doing better now, and you should be grateful. Rick moved in, and suddenly there were rules about noise, friends, food, and even which towels I could use. Then Chloe was born, my half-sister with Rick's eyes and Diane's dimple. Chloe came into the world like a new center of gravity, and I felt myself drifting to the edges. I became the helper, the babysitter, the extra pair of hands. Diane would look at me like I owed her for existing. By the time I turned 17, I had a part-time job at a grocery store and a full-time schedule at home. I didn't go to parties. I didn't date much. I studied in my room with the door cracked open so I could hear Chloe if she cried. Rick liked it that way. Diane called it family responsibility. College was my lighthouse. I applied to state schools and one private college I knew we couldn't afford, just to see if I could. When the acceptance email came, I screamed into my pillow because nobody downstairs would have cared. I got scholarships, enough to cover tuition if I could handle living expenses. I showed Diane the letter anyway, like a kid offering a drawing. She looked at it, eyes scanning the numbers, and something in her face tightened. That's nice, she said, but you're not leaving Chloe. Not after everything I've done. I blinked. Mom, I'd still come back on weekends. I'll work. I can. Rick walked in, coffee in hand, and glanced at the paper like it was a flyer. We need you here, he said. Chloe needs stability, and we're not paying for you to go play grown-up. I'm not asking you to pay, I said carefully. I have scholarships. I just need. Diane cut me off. You need to stop being selfish. That word selfish buried itself under my ribs. I carried it around for months, heavy and sharp. The night I turned 18, there was no cake, no candles, no happy birthday song. Diane made spaghetti and Rick complained it was too salty. Chloe spilled juice and Diane snapped at me to clean it up. I remember staring at the sticky red puddle and thinking, is this what the rest of my life looks like? After dinner, Diane told me to come to the living room. Rick was already sitting there, arms folded like a man about to deliver a verdict. Diane held an envelope and wouldn't hand it to me right away. She just stared, eyes cold. Rick and I talked, she said. We can't keep supporting you. My throat went dry. I'm not asking for support. I work. I'm starting school and we don't approve of your choices, Rick said. You want independence. You get it. Tonight, I laughed once, a broken sound. You're kicking me out. On my birthday, Diane's jaw flexed. Don't make this dramatic. You're an adult. I looked around the room, the couch my dad bought, the family photos, the corner where my dad's old guitar used to sit before Rick cleared clutter. Where am I supposed to go? Rick stood. Not our problem. Diane reached behind the couch and tossed me a trash bag. I packed some things. Your clothes, your shoes. I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Diane's eyes flickered. Just once, like she might soften. Then Rick's hand landed on her shoulder, and whatever softness existed died right there. Go, Diane said, voice steady, and don't come back begging. That's how I ended up on the sidewalk, clutching a trash bag, the porch light snapping off behind me like a slammed door. I walked until the cold made my fingers numb. I didn't know where I was going, only that standing still felt like dying. I called the only person I trusted, my best friend Tessa. She answered on the second ring, sleepy. Mads, what's wrong? My voice cracked. Can I come over? There was a pause, then the sound of her sitting up. Right now. I don't have anywhere else. Okay, she said immediately. Come, I'll tell my mom. Just come. Tessa lived 15 minutes away by car. But I didn't have a car, so I walked for nearly 2 hours, my breath making little ghosts in the air. When I got to her house, her mom, Nadine, opened the door in a robe, eyes wide with concern. She didn't ask questions first. She wrapped a blanket around my shoulders like she was trying to stitch me back together. In Tessa's room, I finally fell apart. Ugly sobs, gasping for air, shaking like I'd been dropped from a great height. Tessa sat with me on the floor and held my hand. They can't do that, she whispered. They did, I choked out. My mom watched. Nadine let me stay on their couch for 2 weeks. I got a second job at a diner near campus and saved every tip like it was oxygen. I found a tiny room to rent from a retired teacher named Mrs. Harper Small, clean and safe. She had a strict rule about quiet hours and another rule about eating real food. The first time she saw me come home with a cup of noodles, she took it from my hands and said, "Sit. I'm making soup. You can be independent without punishing yourself." Mrs. Harper became my anchor. She didn't pry, but she noticed everything. The exhaustion in my eyes, the way I flinched when my phone buzzed, the way my shoulders stayed up around my ears like I expected a blow. School was hard, not because I couldn't do the work, but because I was doing everything else too. I studied at midnight, worked mornings, and slept in shallow naps. My hands cracked from dishwater at the diner. My stomach growled during lectures. But I showed up every day. Diane didn't call, not once. On some level, I expected her to text a day later, "Come home, we were upset." Or even, "Are you safe?" But silence became her message. Then, in October, I got a letter, not from Diane, from the bank that it was addressed to me, at my old home, and forwarded by the postal service after I changed my address. I stared at the logo of my dad's bank and felt my heart trip. The letter referenced an account in my name, an account I didn't know existed. I sat on Mrs. Harper's kitchen chair and read it 3 times. It said the account balance had fallen below a minimum threshold. It mentioned a recent withdrawal that triggered an alert. A withdrawal. My dad used to say, "If anything happens to me, you'll be okay." I set things up. Back then, I thought he meant love. Maybe he meant money too. My hands shook as I called the bank. After verifying my identity with the kind of questions that feel like tiny interrogations, the representative said, "Ms. Lane, this account was opened when you were 12. The beneficiary listed is you." The authorized signer was Diane Lane. My mouth went dry. My mother? Yes. How much was in it? I forced out. There was a pause, keys clicking. At its highest balance, it reached $142,000. The room tilted. "That can't be right," I whispered. "Do you want the transaction history?" the representative asked. "Yes," I said, voice suddenly steady in a way that scared me. "Email it." When the PDF arrived, I stared at it like it was a crime scene. Withdrawals over the years, small at first, then bigger, 10,000, 15, 20, and recently, $30,000, taken 2 months ago. 2 months ago, around the same time Diane started talking about finally renovating the kitchen. My chest burned like I'd swallowed something hot. I thought about the night she kicked me out's trash bag. Cold eyes, "Don't come back begging." I wasn't just unwanted, I was inconvenient. I went to Mrs. Harper's room and knocked. When she opened the door, she took one look at my face and said, "Sit." I handed her the paper. She read silently, then slowly lowered it. "Madison," she said softly, "your father left you something, and someone has been taking it." I didn't cry this time. My tears felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. "What do I do?" Mrs. Harper's eyes sharpened, the retired teacher voice arriving. "First, you stop doubting yourself. Second, you protect what's left. Third," she paused, "third, you decide what justice looks like. Justice, revenge, reveal." Words that sounded dramatic until they were personal. I did what I'd learned to do. I made a plan. Personal. I did what I'd learned. I opened a new account at a different bank and asked about transferring funds that were still there. The representative explained I'd need proper documentation because Diane was an authorized signer. Authorized signer. Those words made me want to scream. My father trusted her. She used that trust like a weapon. Mrs. Harper connected me to someone she knew from her church, an attorney named Elaine Brooks. Elaine had kind eyes and the posture of someone who didn't waste time. When I showed her the transaction history, she didn't gasp or clutch pearls. She got quiet in the way professionals do when they're already building a case in their head. This is serious, Elaine said, because you were a minor when the account was opened. Your mother may argue she used it for your benefit, but the pattern, the amounts, and the timing, especially you being kicked out, this looks like conversion, possibly fraud, depending on how it was represented. My voice came out small. She say she paid for food and clothes and raising me. Elaine nodded. She might, but we can also show what she spent on. If those withdrawals coincide with home renovations, vacations, purchases that don't relate to your care. My mom got new countertops, I said, almost laughing, and Rick bought a used boat. Elaine's eyebrow lifted. A boat, I swallowed. Yeah, Chloe talks about it like it's the greatest thing in the world. Elaine folded her hands. Okay. We can request records, and we can send a formal demand letter. Sometimes that alone makes people return money. And if it doesn't, my voice sharpened. If she lies, then we file, Elaine said simply. But you need to be ready for the emotional fallout. People who steal from their children don't usually admit it gracefully. That night, I sat on my bed and stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to call Diane and scream until my throat gave out. Another part wanted to hear her voice. Just to know she was real and not a nightmare I'd invented. Instead, I texted one sentence. I know about Dad's account. No punctuation, no anger, just the truth, dropped like a match. Her response came 5 minutes later. What are you talking about? I stared at the screen, my heart thudding. She could have confessed. She could have apologized. She chose denial. I typed back the account in my name. The withdrawals, the 30,000 2 months ago. This time, she didn't answer for an hour. When she did, the message was long. Madison, you are being manipulated. You were always ungrateful and dramatic. That money was for family needs. You have no idea what it takes to keep a house running. Rick and I did our best. If you want to attack me, that tells me I was right to let you go. My hands went cold. She didn't just steal. She rewrote reality to make herself the victim. Elaine sent a demand letter the next day. It was professional, precise, and terrifying in its calmness. It requested the return of funds not used for my direct benefit and asked for documentation of expenditures. It gave a deadline. Diane called me the night she received it. Her name lit up my screen like a warning sign. I answered with my voice as steady as I could make it. Hello, are you proud of yourself? Diane snapped. Sending lawyers after your own mother. I didn't send lawyers, I said quietly. I sent consequences. You have no idea, she began. I know exactly. I cut in, surprise in my own strength. I know you took money Dad left for me. I know you did it while telling me we couldn't afford college. I know you renovated the kitchen while I was eating noodles on a couch. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. You're exaggerating. No, I said. I'm finally seeing clearly. Rick's voice boomed in the background. Who is it? Diane lowered her voice. Madison, if you do this, you will destroy this family. I laughed, but it was bitter. You destroyed it when you chose Rick over me. I chose stability, she said. You chose comfort, I replied, and you used me until I stopped being useful. Silence stretched, thick and ugly. Then Diane said, quieter. If you drop it, we can talk. We can start fresh. My stomach twisted. The offer was wrapped like reconciliation, but it smelled like a trap. I'm not asking for a fresh start, I said. I'm asking for what's mine. And I'm asking you to tell the truth. Her voice turned sharp again. You always were your father's daughter. Stubborn, righteous. I heard Rick again, closer now. Tell her she's not getting a dime, he said, loud enough for me to hear. She wants to act grown. Let her starve. Something in me went still, like my emotions finally sat down and let my brain stand up. Put him on, I said. Diane hesitated. No, I said put him on. A beat, then Rick's voice filled the line. Madison, I don't know what fantasy you're living in, but that money kept a roof over your head for years. You owe us. I gripped the phone until my knuckles hurt. I owe you nothing. You owed me care because you chose to marry my mother and live in my father's house. You owed me decency because I was a child. You were a burden, Rick said bluntly. Always moody, always needy. Diane did what she had to. Hearing him say it out loud snapped the last thread of hope I didn't know I still carried. Thanks, I said, voice calm. That's exactly what I needed. But he started. I ended the call. Elaine advised me to document everything. So I wrote down every word, every date, every interaction. I saved texts. I saved voicemails. I saved the way Diane's love turned into a weapon when it couldn't control me. The next month was a slow burn of legal steps and emotional landmines. Diane tried to charm Elaine, calling her sweetheart and insisting she'd explain everything. Rick tried intimidation, threatening countersuits, claiming I was defaming them. Chloe, sweet innocent Chloe, left me a shaky voicemail. Maddie, Mom says you're being mean. Are you mad at me? That voicemail made me cry for the first time in weeks, not because I regretted what I was doing, but because revenge always leaves collateral damage. And I hated that my little sister's heart was anywhere near this mess. I called Chloe back and kept my voice gentle. Hey, Bug, I said, using the nickname I'd given her when she was tiny. I'm not mad at you. None of this is your fault. Then why are you fighting, Mom? She whispered. I swallowed hard. Because sometimes adults do wrong things, and the right thing is to fix it. But I love you, always, she sniffled. I miss you. I miss you too, I said. And it was the truest thing I'd said all day. The twist came in December, right before finals, when Elaine called me with a tone I'd never heard from her, almost amused. We got the bank records, she said, and the spending trail is bold. My stomach clenched. How bad? Your mother used the money to make payments on a credit card in Rick's name, Elaine said. Boat repairs, electronics, a trip to Cabo. There are also transfers to an account that isn't listed as household expenses. My voice went thin. Transfers to where? Elaine exhaled. Rick's business account, a small contracting company. He's been funneling money into it. I sat down hard on my bed. So it wasn't even just keeping the house running. No, Elaine said. It was subsidizing him. I stared at the wall, my heart beat loud in my ears. All those years Diane told me we were tight on money. All those times she guilted me for needing school supplies or wanting to join a club. All those nights I babysat for free because we can't afford a sitter. And all along, my father's gift to me was being drained into Rick's life. Elaine's voice softened. Madison, this strengthens your case significantly. My revenge wasn't going to be screaming in their driveway or making a dramatic scene at a family dinner. It was going to be clean, documented, impossible to deny. Elaine filed the suit. The court process wasn't fast, and it wasn't glamorous. It was phone calls, paperwork, depositions that left me drained. Diane cried in her deposition, telling a story about being a struggling widow who did everything for her daughter. She looked directly at me and said, I never wanted to hurt you. I met her gaze and said, but you did, over and over, and you called it love. Rick tried to smirk through his deposition until Elaine slid the transaction list in front of him and asked him to explain why money from a minor's account was paying for his boat. His smirk died. When the mediation offer came, I felt sick. They wanted to settle, return a portion of the money, and make me sign a confidentiality agreement. Diane called me again, this time with a voice that tried to sound maternal. Madison, please, she said, let's not drag this out. We can fix it quietly. I looked around my tiny room, the thrift store desk, the used lamp, the textbooks stacked like bricks. I thought about how hard I'd worked to survive what they did to me, quietly. I repeated, like how you kicked me out quietly, like how you took my future quietly. Her voice cracked. I was scared. And I was a child, I said. She whispered, what do you want? I could have demanded public humiliation. I could have demanded a scorched earth victory, but I wanted something deeper than that. I wanted my life back. I want the money returned, I said. I want the accounts separated from you permanently. And I want you to admit and record that you used it for things that weren't for me. Diane inhaled sharply. That will make me look honest, I said. It will make you look honest for the first time in years. There was a long, shaky silence. Then she said, small, Rick will never forgive me. I surprised myself by feeling nothing for that. I'm not here to save you from the consequences of your choices, I said. I'm here to save myself. They agreed to my terms. The settlement required repayment, legal fees, and strict protections so Diane could never touch the funds again. The admission wasn't an emotional apology, but it was written truth, and for someone like Diane, truth was the hardest thing to swallow. When the first transfer hit my new account, I stared at the balance and felt my lungs finally fill all the way. It wasn't just money. It was proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that what happened to me mattered. I used part of it to pay off my small debts. I bought groceries without calculating every item like it was a gamble. I fixed my cracked phone screen. I opened a savings account labeled Freedom. Mrs. Harper cried when I handed her an envelope for rent and said, "You've done enough. Keep building." I kept my promise to myself. No sudden, unrealistic changes. I didn't buy a fancy car or move into a penthouse. I stayed in school. I kept working, but I reduced my hours so I could breathe. I took a weekend and slept until my body stopped flinching awake. A month later, I ran into Diane at a grocery store. She looked thinner, older, like her polished armor had finally started to rust. She stood near the produce, staring at apples like she'd forgotten how to choose. When she saw me, her face tightened the way it used to before she got cruel. But this time, she didn't have Rick beside her. She didn't have power. "Madison," she said quietly. "Diane," I replied, and I watched the flinch in her eyes when I didn't call her mom. Her voice trembled. "Chloe asks about you. I talked to her," I said. "That won't change." Diane nodded, swallowing. I never meant for it to go that far. I studied her, really studied her. For years I'd begged for her love, like it was a prize. Standing there, I saw a woman who made choices and then blamed everyone else for the cost. "It went exactly as far as you pushed it," I said. "I just stopped letting you push alone." Tears gathered in her eyes, but I didn't rush to comfort her. That was the old Madison, the girl who carried her mother's emotions like they were her responsibility. "I hope you find peace," I said, and I meant it in the way you mean it. For someone you no longer invite into your house, but you won't find it by rewriting what you did. I walked away before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear, it was release. That night, I sat by my window and watched the streetlights flicker on. I thought about how revenge is often painted as loud and dramatic, like a movie scene. But my revenge was quieter. It was choosing myself. It was refusing to accept a story where I was the villain for surviving. And here's the part that still makes me pause. I didn't win because Diane lost. I won because I stopped handing my life to people who treated it like something they could spend. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, I want you to remember this: your pain is real, and your boundaries are not cruelty. Sometimes the bravest revenge is building a life so solid that the people who tried to break you can't reach you anymore. If this story hit you in the heart, take a second to like the video and subscribe for more real, emotional stories with twists that make you think. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? I read your words, and I promise you're not alone.